God, it's good to be back. I haven't made a proper video in, well, weeks. Pavlov VR is a VR game which seeks to replicate Counter-Strike Global Offensive, which I believe is a game that needs no introduction. As far as Pavlov goes, it's one of the most populous VR exclusive games to date, boasting an average of several hundred players a day, with much of the community having spent hundreds of hours in the game. But is Pavlov VR just a VR clone of CSGO, or is there more than meets the eye? Let's take a look at the game. Alright, so first off, what do I like about the game? Well, Pavlov, for all that it's worth, does a very good job of replicating CSGO pretty much verbatim. Like CSGO, in the search and destroy mode, there are 2 bomb sites that one team of 5 protects, while the opposing team must plant a bomb in one of those sites. If they succeed in doing so, the other team needs to retake that site to then defuse it, but most of the time it's just a death match and everyone just ends up killing each other anyways. But like CSGO Search and Destroy, this mode features an economy which rewards players based on their performance in a round, which allows them to buy guns, armor, and grenades. I like how the bomb actually requires actual input and time to arm and defuse. It makes you vulnerable, so you have to be really careful when you interact with it, because you don't want anyone sneaking up behind you as they're trying to arm or defuse the bomb. It's also pretty cool how you can hold a lot more weapons on your back, sides, and 2 hands, so getting weapon drops for your teammates is much easier. Other than that, the game features a team deathmatch, a free-for-all, and a gun game, modes which obviously need no explanation. There's even a zombie mode tagged on, so the base game actually has a fair amount of content. I also think that the guns are pretty well done. Like CSGO, they take some time and practice to get used to, with each gun having its own stats, reload procedure, and recoil patterns. While guns do have a modicum of detail to them, you can even put attachments on them and change their firing modes, they're pretty straightforward to operate. Reloading is simple, overly simple really, which lends itself well to the game, considering that it does tend to have bursts of pressure and adrenaline that would otherwise make you fumble with the reloading. Weapon inventory is also very convenient. Grabbing weapons from my holsters or back, or getting a magazine from my pouch is very easy. I never find myself missing grabs, like in other games. I also like the incorporation of real-world movement too, whether it be crouching behind a low piece of cover, squatting to get better aim and reduced recoil and all that. Real-world movement is often incorporated in most VR games to some extent, but it's always nice to see. As far as the community goes, it's one of those things where the people you play with are usually a mix between toxic tosspots and people who are mutually cool. Luckily, the community is usually big enough to the point where there's often a wide selection of servers to choose from, so if there's a specific game mode you wanted to play, you can usually find it on the server list. The best part about Pavlov definitely has to be the modding community. Pavlov has workshop support, which allows players to create maps to share with the player base. It's because of this open sourceness that there's a wide variety of maps to choose from when it comes to this game. There's faithful recreations from CSGO, you can play on GoBank from Payday 2, there's Rust, there's a McDonald's map, and a whole lot more. And it doesn't even stop there. People have created maps that not only expand on the base game modes, but essentially create new ones as well. Gmod shenanigans like Trouble in Terrorist Town are thrown into the mix. There's a prison game mode where you play as a prisoner trying to escape, or a guard preventing those very prisoners from escaping. There are many maps inspired or recreated from Call of Duty Zombies, and that's really only scratching the surface. There are a lot of different player-created maps and game modes. On the surface, Pavlov is CSGO in VR and nothing more, but when you really get into the custom maps and game modes, it becomes apparent that there are hundreds, if not thousands of hours of content in this game. Lastly, the game has promise. The game is pretty good now, but the developers are consistently updating and polishing the game, adding new features and whatnot, so hopefully that's a habit that's kept up. That's all I really have to say about the good of this game. It's a pretty basic and simple game, so there's not much critique I have to give it, but I mean, I don't know, I suppose that's the beauty of it, right? Because it's so simple, it can really be whatever you want it to be, but I guess apart from that, there's nothing else in terms of praise that I have for this game. As far as my complaints towards this game, I do have my fair share. Some of them are mostly just early access things that will probably be fixed down the line. For example, you can play with computer players, but they're not that good. The bots are only really like serviceable for free-for-alls, gun games, and team deathmatches, but in Search and Destroy, they don't even do anything. Like, they just stand there unless you go to their spawn area or plant the bomb. Hell, a lot of the times, they'll straight up kill each other because the AI is just that bad. I also think that the developers should somehow find a way to increase the reloading times of the guns. You can reload the guns in this game in literal milliseconds, which shouldn't be possible. There should be a reload time so that the player is left vulnerable or with a weaker secondary weapon for a short amount of time. You shouldn't be able to spray a constant stream of bullets 24/7. Like, there has to be a downside, right? And there's also unlimited ammo in this game, which makes sense for certain game modes, but for the most part, I think that ammo management should be a bigger part of the game. Again, it's just a thing where you shouldn't be able to fire an endless stream of bullets with little to no repercussion, right? Also, there's no leveling system, and I think that sort of takes away from the competitive nature of the game, but I don't know, that might just be me. There's also this weird thing, I think it has to do with like my index controllers, but I'm pretty sure that there's a slight delay with opening and closing your fist, which can kind of mess up with reloading. And speaking of reloading, if you're left-handed, the same button you use to eject your mag is the same one you use to bring up the scoreboard, and that can be rather distracting and, just frustrating. The game also isn't that immersive. I don't have much to say here, seeing as how this is really just a matter of opinion, but the graphics are really only so-so, the character models are really only eh. It doesn't really create an atmosphere that I can believe that I'm a part of. Something I don't really like is how, when I'm in cover, I never know if a part of my body is sticking out or not. I've been in many situations where I've thought that my body was completely in cover, but I still got shot and lost some health, or hell, I straight up died. Also, I'm not bashing the game here, but it's best that you not go into Pavlov with the expectation of an ultra-realistic military simulator or a super accurate gun simulator, because it's just not any of those. Again, I'm not bashing the game here, it's just for the record. Finally, and this is another sort of thing where I'm not critiquing the game and this isn't going to affect the game's score, but the game's developer is pretty sus. I remember a fiasco where people review bombed this game when allegedly a software engineer informed the developer of Pavlov about possible ways to hack the game, and in response, the developer left a ban on his Discord, threatening to abandon the game. Now, this is a strike against the developer and not the game, but I think it's worth mentioning because I do believe in informing the consumer about this sort of stuff, right? I have a duty to hold the game developers responsible for whatever they may do. I know, I'm very noble. Anyways, that's all I've really got to say about Pavlov VR. I'd say it's a damn good game. And now it's time for me to give a rating. So if I had to rate this game out of 10, I'd say it's an 8.5 out of 10. No, yes, it's a very simple game, both in premise and execution. There aren't any complex game mechanics that shake up the FPS genre, but honestly, it doesn't have to have such things. The important thing is, it's just fun. That's all it has to be. Not only that, but Pavlov is essentially a buffet of content, thanks to its dedicated community. I have 200 hours in this game, and I really only see my playtime going up. Maybe even going into the thousands, honestly. While it's certainly not the bargain it was a year or two ago, I believe it was $10 or $15 at some point, but it's still very much worth the price. It may not be the most immersive, but I'll be damned if I said that it wasn't one of the most fun VR games that I've ever played. Dare I say it, it's a must-have for anyone with a VR headset. Friendly fella Jed, out.